Honey, I'm pregnant. Those words came out of my wife's mouth at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning while I was drinking my coffee and reading the newspaper. Carmen was standing in our kitchen doorway, holding a pregnancy test, glowing with excitement about the baby we were apparently expecting. There was just one problem. Carmen is 55 years old, and I had a vasectomy 30 years ago. My name is Reginald Harris, but everyone calls me Reggie. I'm 58 years old, and I've been married to Carmen for 32 years. And the woman standing in my kitchen announcing her pregnancy has no idea that I've been sterile since 1995. Reggie, did you hear me? I said I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby. I stared at her over my coffee cup, trying to process what she'd just said. Carmen was practically bouncing with joy, tears streaming down her face, holding that pregnancy test like it was a winning lottery ticket. That's wonderful, honey, I managed to say, though my mind was racing through the mathematical impossibility of what she'd just announced. I know it's unexpected, she continued, rushing over to hug me. I mean, I'm 55 and you're 58. We thought we were done having children after the kids grew up. But apparently God had other plans for us. God had other plans. Or Carmen had other men. How far along are you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The doctor says about 8 weeks. Can you believe it? 8 weeks and I had no idea. I just thought I was going through menopause. 8 weeks pregnant. Which meant Carmen had conceived this baby sometime in November, when I was working 60-hour weeks on the Morrison construction project and barely home long enough to sleep, let alone have sex with my wife. But more importantly, it meant Carmen had been having unprotected sex with someone else and was now trying to pass off another man's baby as mine. Reggie, say something. Aren't you excited? I looked at my wife of 32 years, the mother of my 3 children, the woman I'd trusted with every aspect of my life, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. I'm shocked, I said, which was the absolute truth. I never expected this. I know it's a lot to process. But Reggie, this is a miracle. A baby at our age. We're going to be parents again. Parents again. Carmen was going to be a parent again, but not with me. With whoever had gotten her pregnant while I was working to support our family. But here's what Carmen didn't know, what she'd never known in 32 years of marriage. I'd gotten a vasectomy in 1995 after our 3rd child was born, and I'd never told her about it. I'd been 28 years old then, overwhelmed by 3 kids under the age of 8, working double shifts to support our growing family, and terrified of Carmen getting pregnant again. The vasectomy was my insurance policy against having more children we couldn't afford. I told Carmen I was going to the doctor for a routine physical. Instead, I'd gone to a clinic across town, paid cash for the procedure, and taken 2 sick days to recover. Carmen thought I had the flu. For 30 years, I'd kept that secret, never thinking it would matter. We'd stopped trying to have more children after our 3rd, and Carmen seemed content with our family size. But now, standing in my kitchen at 7 a.m. listening to my 55-year-old wife announce her pregnancy, that 30-year-old secret was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Because if Carmen was pregnant, and I'd been sterile for 30 years, then she'd been cheating on me. And if she'd been cheating on me recently, then maybe she'd been cheating on me for a long time. Maybe years. Maybe decades. Maybe our entire marriage. Reggie, you look pale. Are you okay? I'm fine. Just processing. I know it's a lot. But think about it. We get to experience pregnancy and childbirth again, but this time we're older, wiser, more financially stable. This baby is going to be so lucky to have us as parents. Lucky to have us as parents. This baby was going to have Carmen as a mother and some other man as a biological father, while I played the role of the unknowing husband who supported another man's child. Just like I might have been doing for the past 30 years. Carmen, I need to ask you something. What? Are you sure this baby is mine? The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Carmen's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, hurt, confusion, and then anger. Reggie, how can you ask me that? Of course this baby is yours. Who else's would it be? I don't know. You tell me. I can't believe you're questioning me like this. We're married, Reggie. We've been together for 32 years. This is our baby. Our baby. But I knew with absolute certainty that it wasn't our baby, because it couldn't be our baby. And Carmen's insistence that it was meant she was either delusional or lying. Given the fact that she was pregnant at 55 with a baby that couldn't possibly be mine, I was betting on lying. You're right, I said, forcing a smile. I'm sorry. It's just such a surprise. A baby at our age. I know it's unexpected. But Reggie, this is a gift. This is our chance to be parents together one more time. One more time. Or in my case, possibly the first time, if my growing suspicions about our other children turned out to be correct. That night, after Carmen had gone to bed, I sat in my home office trying to process what I'd learned. My wife was pregnant with another man's baby, and she was either trying to fool me into thinking it was mine, or she genuinely didn't know who the father was. Either scenario meant Carmen had been having an affair, and the pregnancy had exposed it in the most dramatic way possible. But I couldn't stop thinking about our other children. Marcus, 31, Diana, 29, and Kevin, 26. All born after I'd gotten the vasectomy in 1995. Wait. That wasn't right. I did the math again. Marcus was born in 1993, Diana in 1995, and Kevin in 1998. Marcus was born 2 years before my vasectomy, so he could legitimately be mine. But Diana was born the same year as my vasectomy, and Kevin was born 3 years after it. Which meant 2 of my 3 children might not be biologically mine. I sat there in my office, staring at family photos on my desk, trying to remember the timeline of my vasectomy and my children's births. The procedure was in March 1995. Diana was born in September 1995. If Carmen got pregnant with Diana in December 1994 or January 1995, she could be mine. But if she got pregnant any later than that, after my vasectomy had taken effect, then Diana wasn't my biological daughter. And Kevin, born in 1998, definitely wasn't mine. I'd been supporting and raising another man's children for over 25 years, completely unaware that my wife had been having affairs and passing off other men's children as mine. The pregnancy announcement that was supposed to be joyful news had opened a door to 30 years of deception that I was only beginning to understand. Carmen had been cheating on me for decades, and I'd been too trusting, too busy working to support our family, too grateful for her competence as a wife and mother to see what was really happening. But now I knew, and I had to decide what to do with that knowledge. Let me take you back to 1992, when I first met Carmen and had no idea I was falling in love with a woman who would spend the next 32 years systematically deceiving me about the most fundamental aspects of our life together. I was 26 years old, working construction in Atlanta, making decent money and looking for someone to build a life with. Carmen was 23, working as a receptionist at a medical clinic, beautiful and ambitious with dreams of becoming a nurse. Carmen was everything I wanted in a woman: smart, funny, organized, and completely devoted to the idea of building a traditional family. She talked about wanting children, a nice house, a stable marriage based on love and mutual respect. "I want to be the kind of wife who takes care of her family," she'd tell me during our early dates. "I want to create a home where my husband feels loved and supported, where our children feel safe and valued." I was completely smitten. Here was a woman who shared my values, who wanted the same things I wanted, who seemed committed to building the kind of life I'd always dreamed of having. We got married in June 1993, and Carmen got pregnant with Marcus almost immediately. She was thrilled about becoming a mother, and I was excited about becoming a father. "This is just the beginning," she'd say while rubbing her pregnant belly. "We're going to have a big, beautiful family." Marcus was born in October 1993, a healthy baby boy who looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same nose, same chin. There was no question he was my biological son. Carmen was a natural mother, completely devoted to Marcus's care and development. She read every parenting book, attended every pediatric appointment, documented every milestone with photographs and baby books. "I want to remember everything," she'd say while taking pictures of Marcus learning to crawl, walk, talk. These moments go by so fast. But even in those early days of our marriage, there were signs that something wasn't quite right with Carmen's story about her commitment to our family. She'd get phone calls at odd hours that she'd taken another room, claiming they were from girlfriends or work colleagues. She'd receive mail addressed to her at post office boxes I didn't know she had. She'd disappear for hours at a time, claiming she was running errands or visiting her mother. "Carmen seems to have a very active social life," my sister Diane observed during one family gathering. "She's always rushing off to meet someone or go somewhere." I dismissed Diane's concerns as jealousy. Carmen was a social person who had friends and interests outside our marriage. That seemed healthy and normal to me. What I didn't understand was that Carmen's social life included relationships with men that went far beyond friendship. In 1995, when Marcus was almost 2 years old, Carmen announced she was pregnant again. "I hope it's a girl this time," she said, glowing with the kind of joy that made me fall in love with her all over again. "I want Marcus to have a little sister." By this time, I was working 60-hour weeks to support our growing family, and the financial pressure was enormous. 2 children under the age of 3, a mortgage, daycare costs, medical bills, everything we earned was going straight to family expenses. That's when I made the decision to get a vasectomy without telling Carmen. I wasn't trying to deceive her, exactly. I was trying to protect our family from the financial disaster of having more children than we could afford. Carmen wanted a big family, but I could see that we were already stretched to our limits with 2 kids. The vasectomy was my way of ensuring we wouldn't accidentally have more children while avoiding the conflict that would come if I told Carmen I didn't want more kids. I scheduled the procedure for a Friday in March 1995, told Carmen I was going for a routine physical, and took the following Monday off work, claiming I had the flu. "Poor baby," Carmen said, bringing me soup and checking my temperature. "You just rest and get better." I recovered quickly, and the secret vasectomy became just another detail of my medical history that didn't seem relevant to our daily life. Diana was born in September 1995, 6 months after my vasectomy. If Carmen had gotten pregnant in December 1994 or January 1995, before the procedure, then Diana could be mine. But the timing was uncomfortably close. Diana was beautiful, but she didn't look like Marcus or me. She had different coloring, different facial features, a different build entirely. "She must take after your side of the family," I told Carmen, studying our daughter's face for any resemblance to my relatives. "Maybe," Carmen said. "Or maybe she just looks like herself. Maybe she looked like her real father, whoever that was." But I pushed those thoughts aside. Diana was my daughter legally and emotionally, regardless of biology. I loved her completely from the moment she was born. Carmen was an excellent mother to both children, but I noticed she seemed more relaxed during this pregnancy and after Diana's birth. Less anxious, less concerned about every detail, more confident in her parenting decisions. "I feel like I know what I'm doing this time," she explained. "Second babies are easier because you've been through it before." Or maybe second babies were easier when you'd been through pregnancy and childbirth with someone else before your husband. By 1997, our family felt complete with Marcus and Diana, and Carmen hadn't mentioned wanting more children. I thought we were done having kids, which made my secret vasectomy feel like a smart decision that had worked out perfectly. Then Carmen announced she was pregnant again. "Surprise," she said, showing me a positive pregnancy test. "I know we said we were done, but apparently fate had other plans." Fate. Or Carmen's ongoing affair with whoever was the real father of our children. Kevin was born in February 1998, almost 3 years after my vasectomy. There was no way he could be my biological son, but I had no idea about that at the time. Like Diana, Kevin didn't look like Marcus or me. Different coloring, different build, different facial features. But Carmen had an explanation for everything. "He looks just like my brother did as a baby," she'd say when people commented on Kevin's appearance. "He definitely got the Martinez genes." The Martinez genes. Or the genes of whatever man Carmen was sleeping with when she conceived Kevin. But I loved Kevin just as much as I loved Marcus and Diana. Biology didn't matter to me. These were my children in every way that counted. I was the one getting up for midnight feedings, changing diapers, reading bedtime stories, coaching little league games. Carmen was an involved mother, but she also seemed increasingly busy with activities and commitments that took her away from home frequently. "I'm taking a photography class," she'd announce, or "I joined a book club," or "I'm volunteering at the community center." Carmen always had somewhere to go, someone to meet, something to do that required her to be away from home for hours at a time. "You have such an active social life," I'd tease her. "Sometimes I feel like I barely see you." "I think it's important for mothers to have interests outside the home," she'd reply. "It makes me a better wife and mother when I have my own activities." Her own activities, which apparently included maintaining relationships with the men who were fathering her children. By 2000, when Kevin was 2 years old, Carmen seemed to have settled into a comfortable routine of motherhood combined with an extensive social life that kept her busy most evenings and weekends. She'd taken a part-time job at a law firm, ostensibly to help with family finances, but also to have professional fulfillment and adult conversation. "I love being a mother," she'd say, "but I also need intellectual stimulation. This job gives me the best of both worlds." The best of both worlds. A stable marriage with a hard-working husband who supported the family financially, plus the excitement of affairs with other men who provided emotional and physical satisfaction. I was working longer hours than ever, trying to keep up with the expenses of raising 3 children, and I was grateful that Carmen was contributing income and managing the household so efficiently. "You work so hard for us," she'd say, massaging my shoulders after long days on construction sites. "I want to make sure home is a place where you can relax and be comfortable." Home was comfortable, and Carmen was an excellent wife in most ways. She cooked, cleaned, managed our finances, coordinated the children's activities, and maintained our social relationships. What she was also doing, apparently, was managing multiple affairs while making sure I never suspected anything. Carmen had become an expert at compartmentalizing her life, keeping her marriage and her affairs completely separate so that neither interfered with the other. In 2003, when Marcus was 10, Diana was 8, and Kevin was 5, Carmen suggested we buy a bigger house. "The kids are getting older, and they need more space," she said. "Plus, this neighborhood is getting run down. I think we should move somewhere with better schools." Better schools meant a more expensive house, which meant a bigger mortgage, which meant I'd have to work even more hours to afford our new lifestyle. But Carmen had found the perfect house in the perfect neighborhood, and she'd already researched the schools, the property values, the long-term investment potential. "This is an opportunity to build real wealth for our family," she explained, showing me financial projections and market analyses. "Real estate is the best investment we can make." Carmen handled all the paperwork for the house purchase, all the negotiations with real estate agents and mortgage brokers, all the decisions about neighborhoods and school districts. "You focus on work," she'd say. "I'll handle all the house hunting details." What I didn't realize was that Carmen was also using the house hunting process as an opportunity to spend time with whatever man she was seeing at the time, claiming she was meeting with real estate agents when she was actually meeting with her lover. The new house was beautiful, but it came with a mortgage payment that required me to work 70-hour weeks just to break even. I was barely home long enough to sleep, let alone spend time with my family. "I miss having you around more," Carmen would say, "but I understand that you're working hard for our future." For our future. Carmen was securing our future while simultaneously betraying it with other men. By 2005, our life had settled into a pattern that would continue for the next 15 years. I worked constantly to support our increasingly expensive lifestyle, while Carmen managed the household and maintained what I thought was an admirable level of community involvement. She volunteered at the children's schools, organized neighborhood events, participated in church activities, and maintained an active social calendar that kept her busy most evenings. "Carmen is such a wonderful mother and wife," people would tell me at social gatherings. "You're so lucky to have someone so involved in the community." I was lucky, I thought. Carmen was handling everything at home, which allowed me to focus completely on earning money to support our family's comfortable lifestyle. What I didn't know was that Carmen's community involvement provided perfect cover for her affairs. She could meet men at volunteer events, develop relationships under the guise of friendship, and conduct affairs while appearing to be the picture of domestic virtue. Carmen had created the perfect system for cheating: a husband who worked constantly and trusted her completely, combined with a social life that gave her unlimited opportunities to meet men and unlimited excuses for being away from home. In 2008, when the construction industry took a hit during the recession, I had to work even harder to maintain our income level. Sometimes I'd work 7 days a week, taking any job I could find to keep up with our mortgage and living expenses. "I hate that you have to work so much," Carmen would say, "but I'm proud of how hard you're working for our family." She was proud of how hard I was working to support her affairs. During this period, Carmen seemed more affectionate and attentive than she'd been in years. She'd cook my favorite meals, give me massages after long workdays, and tell me how much she appreciated my dedication to our family. "You're such a good husband and father," she'd say. "I'm so grateful for everything you do for us." What I interpreted as increased appreciation for my hard work was actually guilt about her affairs, expressed through increased attention to my comfort and happiness. Carmen was trying to balance the guilt of cheating with extra effort to be a good wife in other ways. By 2010, our children were teenagers with busy social lives and academic commitments that required constant transportation and supervision. Carmen handled most of the parenting duties while I continued working long hours to pay for cars, college preparations, and all the expenses that come with raising 3 teenagers. "The kids keep me so busy," Carmen would say. "Between school events, sports, music lessons, and social activities, I feel like I'm running a taxi service." But Carmen's schedule was even busier than the children's activities required. She'd drop off Marcus at baseball practice and disappear for 3 hours before picking him up. She'd take Diana to music lessons and be gone for the entire afternoon. She'd attend Kevin's soccer games and then have mysterious errands that kept her away from home until evening. "Where did you go after Diana's lesson?" I'd ask when she'd get home late. "Oh, I ran into Sarah Miller at the music school, and we went for coffee to catch up," she'd say. "You know how time flies when you're talking with friends. Time flies when you're having affairs, too." Carmen always had explanations for her whereabouts, always had friends she'd supposedly met for coffee or errands she'd needed to run. Her stories were always plausible, always detailed enough to be believable, never quite specific enough to verify. She'd become a master of deception, creating a parallel life that existed alongside our marriage without ever quite intersecting with it. In 2012, Marcus graduated from high school and left for college. Carmen seemed genuinely emotional about his departure, crying when we dropped him off at his dorm and talking frequently about how much she missed him. "It's so strange having him gone," she'd say. "The house feels empty without him." But Carmen's sadness about Marcus leaving seemed to be balanced by excitement about having more freedom and privacy. With only 2 children at home, both old enough to drive themselves places, Carmen had even more opportunities to pursue her outside interests. "I'm thinking about taking some classes," she announced. "Maybe art history or literature. Something just for me. Something just for her." Like the affairs she'd been conducting for over 15 years. Carmen enrolled in continuing education classes at the local community college, which gave her legitimate reasons to be away from home for hours at a time, several days a week. "It feels so good to be using my brain again," she'd say after her classes. "I love learning new things." I was proud of Carmen for pursuing her education and personal interests. It seemed healthy for her to have activities and goals beyond our family responsibilities. What I didn't realize was that Carmen was using her college classes the same way she'd used her volunteer work and social activities, as opportunities to meet men and conduct affairs. In 2014, Diana graduated and left for college as well, leaving only Kevin at home for his final 2 years of high school. Carmen seemed to handle Diana's departure better than Marcus's, but she also became even more involved in outside activities and commitments. "With just Kevin at home, I have so much more time for myself," she said. I'm thinking about increasing my volunteer work and maybe taking on some freelance projects. More volunteer work meant more opportunities to meet men. Freelance projects meant more excuses to be away from home. Carmen was preparing for the empty nest phase of our marriage by expanding her social life and professional activities to levels that would give her maximum freedom to pursue her affairs. By 2016, when Kevin was in his senior year of high school, Carmen had created a lifestyle that kept her away from home most days and many evenings. She had classes, volunteer commitments, freelance work, social activities, and exercise routines that filled almost every hour when she wasn't actively needed at home. I can't believe how busy I am, she'd say, consulting her elaborate calendar system. Sometimes I feel like I barely have time to breathe. But Carmen seemed energized by her busy schedule rather than exhausted by it. She was more vibrant, more confident, more socially engaged than she'd been in years. You seem really happy lately, I observed during one of our increasingly rare evenings together. I am happy, she said. I feel like I'm finally living my life instead of just managing everyone else's. Living her life, which included managing multiple relationships while maintaining the appearance of being a devoted wife and mother. When Kevin graduated in 2016 and left for college, Carmen and I were alone together for the first time in over 20 years. It's going to be strange, just the two of us, she said as we drove home from Kevin's graduation ceremony. It'll be nice to have some time together without worrying about kids' schedules, I replied. But Carmen didn't seem interested in spending more time together. If anything, she became even busier with outside activities and commitments. I want to make the most of this phase of my life, she explained when I commented on how little time we spent together. I've devoted 25 years to raising children. Now I want to focus on my own interests and goals. Her own interests and goals, which apparently didn't include strengthening our marriage or preparing for retirement together. From 2016 to 2024, Carmen built an independent life that intersected with our marriage only when necessary. We lived in the same house, shared the same bank accounts, attended the same social events, but we were essentially leading separate lives. Carmen had her activities, her friends, her projects, and her schedule that kept her busy most of the time. I had my work, my hobbies, and my assumption that we were building toward a comfortable retirement together. What do you want to do when you retire? Carmen would ask occasionally, but her tone suggested she was asking out of politeness rather than genuine interest in planning our future together. I'd talk about traveling, spending time with our children and future grandchildren, pursuing hobbies we'd never had time for during our working years. Carmen would nod and agree, but she never seemed excited about any retirement plans that involved the two of us spending more time together. What she was excited about, apparently, was the thought of finally being free to live openly with whoever she'd been seeing behind my back for all these years. But Carmen made a critical error in her long-term planning. She got pregnant at 55, forgetting that her husband had been sterile for 30 years. Now, sitting in my home office at midnight, staring at family photos and trying to process the implications of Carmen's pregnancy announcement, I realized that my entire adult life had been built on lies. My wife had been cheating on me for decades. At least 2 of my 3 children were probably not mine biologically. And the pregnancy she'd announced this morning was proof that her affairs were still ongoing. Carmen had spent 32 years building what appeared to be a perfect marriage and family while systematically betraying every vow she'd made to me. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd gotten pregnant while married to a man who couldn't father children. And now I had to decide what to do with the knowledge that my entire life had been a carefully constructed lie. The next morning, I woke up before Carmen and sat in the kitchen drinking coffee, trying to figure out how to handle what I'd learned. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to demand an explanation for how she could be pregnant when I'd been sterile for 30 years. But another part of me wanted to gather more information before making any accusations. If Carmen had been cheating for decades, I wanted to know the full scope of her betrayal before deciding how to respond. Carmen came into the kitchen around 7 a.m., glowing with the same pregnancy excitement she'd shown the day before. "Good morning, Daddy," she said, kissing my cheek and rubbing her belly. "How did you sleep?" "Fine," I said. though I'd actually been awake most of the night thinking about her affairs. "I made an appointment with Dr. Peterson for next week," she announced. "I want to make sure everything is progressing normally." Dr. Peterson had been Carmen's obstetrician for all 3 of our previous children. He'd also been the doctor who'd recommended I get regular physicals to monitor my health as I got older. "That's good," I said. "Better to be safe." "I'm so excited, Reggie. I know this pregnancy is unexpected, but I have such a good feeling about this baby." A good feeling about another man's baby that she was trying to pass off as mine. "Carmen, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How long have you been having symptoms?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, when did you first start feeling pregnant? When did you first suspect you might be expecting?" Carmen thought for a moment. "Well, I missed my period in December, but I thought it might be menopause. Then I started feeling nauseous in January, and my breasts got tender. But I didn't really think I could be pregnant until I took the test yesterday." Missed her period in December. Which meant she'd gotten pregnant in November, when I'd been working 60-hour weeks on the Morrison project and barely home. "Were you feeling sick during the holidays?" "A little. But I thought it was just stress from Christmas preparations and family visits." "Stress from Christmas preparations. Or morning sickness from early pregnancy. Do you remember when this baby might have been conceived?" Carmen blushed slightly. "Well, it would have been sometime in November. I know we haven't been as intimate as we used to be, with you working so much. But it only takes once, right? It only takes once." Except we hadn't been intimate at all in November, because I'd been working 7 days a week and coming home exhausted every night. Carmen was not only cheating on me and lying about the baby's paternity, she was also lying about when and how the baby had been conceived. "You're right," I said. "It only takes once. But it takes at least one time, and Carmen and I hadn't had sex in months." That afternoon, while Carmen was at work, I called Dr. Peterson's office and made an appointment for myself. "I'd like to come in for some routine tests," I told his nurse. "Just general health screening." What I really wanted was confirmation that my vasectomy was still effective, that I was definitely sterile, and that there was no possible way I could be the father of Carmen's baby. I also wanted to ask Dr. Peterson about the timing of my previous children's births relative to my vasectomy, though I wasn't sure how to bring up that subject without revealing that I'd hidden the procedure from my wife for 30 years. The appointment was scheduled for the following week, the same day as Carmen's prenatal visit. "I made an appointment with Dr. Peterson too," I told Carmen. "Figured I should get a checkup if we're going to be dealing with a new baby." "That's a great idea," she said. "You should make sure you're healthy and ready to be a father again." Ready to be a father again. To another man's child. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to Carmen's behavior, looking for signs of the affair that had resulted in her pregnancy. She was more attentive to her appearance than usual, taking extra time with makeup and clothing selection. She was more secretive about her phone, taking calls in other rooms and being protective of her text messages. She was also more affectionate with me, which I realized was probably guilt about her pregnancy situation. "I love you so much, Reggie," she'd say, hugging me tightly. "I'm so grateful for everything you do for our family." Everything I did for our family. Including unknowingly supporting her affairs and raising other men's children. Carmen also seemed nervous about her upcoming doctor's appointment, which struck me as odd since she'd been excited about the pregnancy. "I hope everything goes well with Dr. Peterson," she said the night before our appointments. "Why wouldn't it? Well, I'm 55. There are more risks with pregnancy at my age. Genetic abnormalities, complications, miscarriage." Genetic abnormalities. If the baby wasn't mine, genetic testing might reveal whose it actually was. "I'm sure everything will be fine," I said. "You've had 3 healthy pregnancies before." "That was 25 years ago, Reggie. My body is different now." Her body was different, but her pattern of cheating apparently wasn't. The next morning, We drove to Dr. Peterson's office together for our separate appointments. Carmen went in first for her prenatal visit, while I waited in the lobby. After about an hour, Carmen came out looking pale and shaken. "How did it go?" I asked. "Fine," she said quickly. "Everything looks normal. The baby is healthy and developing on schedule." "That's wonderful news. Dr. Peterson wants to do some additional tests because of my age, but he said that's standard for pregnancies over 40. Additional tests, including genetic testing that might reveal the baby's actual paternity." "What kind of tests?" "Oh, just blood work and ultrasounds. Nothing invasive. Blood work and ultrasounds that would provide DNA information about the baby's father." "When will you get the results?" "Next week," he said. Next week. When Carmen would learn whether her lies about the baby's paternity could be sustained, or whether medical evidence would expose her affairs. Then it was my turn to see Dr. Peterson. "Reggie, good to see you," he said, shaking my hand. "Carmen tells me you're expecting again. Congratulations." "Thank you. Actually, that's why I'm here. I wanted to make sure I'm healthy enough to handle being a father again at my age." "That's very responsible. Let's do a complete physical and run some tests." During the examination, Dr. Peterson asked about my medical history, current medications, and any concerns I might have about my health. "Actually, there is something I need to discuss with you," I said. "Something I've never told Carmen." Dr. Peterson looked up from his notes. "What's that?" "I had a vasectomy in 1995. I never told my wife about it." Dr. Peterson was quiet for a moment. "I see. And you're concerned about—" "I'm concerned about how my wife can be pregnant when I've been sterile for 30 years. Have you discussed this with Carmen?" "No. I wanted to confirm that the vasectomy is still effective before I say anything." Dr. Peterson nodded. "We can definitely test that. But Reggie, if your vasectomy is still effective, and your wife is pregnant, then you need to have a serious conversation with her about the paternity of this baby." "I know. But I want to be absolutely certain about my sterility before I make any accusations." Dr. Peterson ordered a semen analysis to confirm that my vasectomy was still preventing sperm production. He also ran blood tests to check my general health and hormone levels. "The results will be available in a few days," he said. "But Reggie, I have to tell you that vasectomies are extremely reliable. The chances of pregnancy occurring after 30 years are virtually zero." Virtually zero. Which meant Carmen was definitely having an affair, and the baby was definitely not mine. "There's something else I need to ask you," I said. "About my other children." "What about them?" "Marcus was born in 1993, before my vasectomy. Diana was born in 1995, the same year as the procedure. Kevin was born in 1998, 3 years after." Dr. Peterson understood immediately. "You're wondering about the paternity of Diana and Kevin?" "Yes. When exactly did you have the vasectomy?" "March 1995. "And when was Diana born?" "September 1995. Dr. Peterson did the math. "If Diana was conceived in December 1994 or January 1995, before your vasectomy, she could be yours. But if she was conceived any later than that, after the procedure took effect, then she's not mine." "Correct. And Kevin, born in 1998, almost certainly isn't your biological son." The room spun around me as I processed what Dr. Peterson had just confirmed. Not only was Carmen's current pregnancy the result of an affair, but at least one, and possibly two, of my other children weren't biologically mine either. "What do you recommend I do?" "That's not a medical question, Reggie. That's a personal decision you'll have to make. But I will say this, if you're going to confront Carmen about the paternity issues, you should probably do it soon. These situations don't get easier with time." I left Dr. Peterson's office with a confirmed appointment to receive my test results in 3 days, and a growing understanding that my entire family life had been built on Carmen's lies and affairs. Carmen was quiet during the drive home, presumably processing whatever Dr. Peterson had told her about the risks and complications of pregnancy at her age. "He seemed concerned about something," I said, fishing for information about her appointment. "Not concerned, exactly. Just cautious. He wants to monitor the pregnancy more closely because of my age." "Did he say anything about genetic testing?" Carmen's hands tightened on her purse. "He mentioned some optional tests that could screen for birth defects. But they're not required. Optional tests that could also reveal the baby's paternity. Are you going to do them?" "I'm not sure yet. Dr. Peterson said I should discuss it with you and decide what we're comfortable with." "What we're comfortable with?" Carmen was asking me to help decide whether to do tests that would expose her infidelity. "What do you think?" I asked. "Well, the tests do carry some risks. And at my age, if there were problems with the baby, I'm not sure what we'd do anyway." Carmen was trying to avoid genetic testing that would reveal the baby's actual father. "Maybe we should think about it for a few days," I suggested. "That's probably wise." But I wasn't going to wait for Carmen to decide about genetic testing. I was going to get the information I needed to confront her about 30 years of affairs and lies. 3 days later, I returned to Dr. Peterson's office to get my test results. "The semen analysis confirms that your vasectomy is completely effective," he told me. "There are no sperm present in your sample. You are definitely sterile. So there's no way I could be the father of Carmen's baby." "None whatsoever." "What about Diana and Kevin? Based on the timing of your vasectomy and their births, Diana could potentially be yours if she was conceived before March 1995. Kevin, born in 1998, is definitely not your biological son." The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. Carmen had been cheating on me for at least 30 years, I'd been unknowingly raising another man's son for 26 years, and she was currently pregnant with yet another man's baby. "Dr. Peterson, I need to ask you something else." "What's that?" "If I wanted to do paternity testing on Diana and Kevin, how would I go about that?" "You'd need DNA samples from all 3 of you. It's a simple process, just cheek swabs. The results are extremely accurate." "And if I wanted to do it without Carmen knowing?" Dr. Peterson looked uncomfortable. "Reggie, I understand this is a difficult situation, but I'd strongly recommend discussing this with Carmen before taking any action. I need to know the truth before I confront her. If I'm wrong about any of this, it would destroy our marriage unnecessarily. And if you're right, then our marriage was already destroyed 30 years ago. I just didn't know it." Dr. Peterson gave me information about DNA testing services that could provide discrete paternity testing. He also recommended that I consider speaking with a counselor or lawyer before confronting Carmen about the affair and paternity issues. "This is going to be incredibly difficult for everyone involved," he warned. "Make sure you're prepared for the consequences before you take action." I was prepared for the consequences. What I wasn't prepared for was how much worse the situation was about to become. That evening, Carmen announced that she'd decided against genetic testing for the baby. "I've been thinking about it, and I don't think the tests are necessary," she said. "We'll love this baby regardless, and the risks of the procedures outweigh the benefits." The risks of the procedures. Carmen was worried about the risk of exposing her affair, not the risk to the baby. "Are you sure?" I asked. "The tests could give us important information about the baby's health." "I'm sure. I'd rather focus on staying healthy and positive than worrying about potential problems." Carmen had made her decision based on protecting her secret rather than protecting the baby's health. But I'd made my decision too. The next morning, while Carmen was at work, I called the DNA testing service Dr. Peterson had recommended and arranged for paternity testing on myself, Diana, and Kevin. "We can provide discrete testing," the technician told me. "You collect the samples at home and mail them to our lab. Results are available in 3 to 5 business days." What kind of samples do you need? Simple cheek swabs. We'll send you a kit with instructions. I also arranged for separate testing to determine the paternity of Carmen's unborn baby, though that would require Carmen's participation or waiting until after the birth. The DNA testing kit arrived 2 days later. I collected my own sample immediately, then waited for opportunities to collect samples from Diana and Kevin without their knowledge. Diana came to visit that weekend, and I managed to collect a sample from a water glass she'd used during lunch. Kevin was more difficult since he lived across the country, but he'd left some personal items in his old bedroom that contained hair samples with follicles attached. I mailed the samples to the laboratory on Monday and settled in to wait for results that would either confirm or refute my suspicions about my children's paternity. While I waited, I started paying even closer attention to Carmen's behavior, looking for clues about who she might be having an affair with. She was increasingly protective of her phone and computer, never leaving either device unattended when I was around. She was also spending more time away from home, claiming she needed to rest and reduce stress for the baby's health. Dr. Peterson said I should take things easy, she'd say when leaving for mysterious appointments that lasted for hours. Where are you going to rest? Oh, just to the park or the library. Quiet places where I can relax. The park or the library. Or her lover's house. Carmen was also more affectionate and attentive to me than she'd been in years, which I now recognized as guilt about her ongoing deception. I love you so much, Reggie, she'd say, hugging me tightly. I'm so grateful to have you as my husband and the father of my children. The father of her children. At least one of whom wasn't mine, and possibly more. 4 days after mailing the DNA samples, I received a call from the testing laboratory. Mr. Harris, your results are ready. Would you like them emailed or mailed? Emailed, please. They'll be in your inbox within the hour. I spent that hour pacing around my house, preparing myself for confirmation of what I already suspected. Carmen had been cheating for decades, and I'd been unknowingly raising other men's children. When the email arrived, I opened it with shaking hands. Diana, 99.97% probability of paternity. She was my biological daughter. Kevin, 0% probability of paternity. He was not my biological son. The results confirmed what I'd calculated based on the timing of my vasectomy. Diana had been conceived before the procedure took effect, so she was mine. Kevin had been conceived 3 years later, so he belonged to whoever Carmen had been sleeping with in 1997. I sat in my home office, staring at the DNA results, trying to process the reality that I'd been supporting and loving another man's son for 26 years while Carmen carried on an affair that had lasted for decades. But the worst part wasn't learning that Kevin wasn't my biological son. The worst part was realizing that Carmen's current pregnancy meant her affairs were still ongoing, even after 32 years of marriage. She hadn't cheated once and confessed. She hadn't had a brief affair and ended it. She'd been systematically deceiving me for most of our marriage, having multiple affairs, bearing other men's children, and allowing me to support families that weren't biologically mine. And she was still doing it. That evening, Carmen came home from another mysterious appointment, glowing with pregnancy happiness and talking about baby names and nursery preparations. I was thinking we could convert the guest room into a nursery, she said, showing me paint samples and furniture catalogs. What do you think about yellow? It's gender neutral in case we want to be surprised. Gender neutral. Because Carmen didn't know if she was having a boy or girl with whatever man had gotten her pregnant. That sounds fine, I said, though I was thinking about how to confront her with the DNA evidence. I'm so excited about this baby, Reggie. I know it's unexpected, but I feel like this is meant to be. Meant to be. Carmen's affair baby was meant to be supported by her unknowing husband. Carmen, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy in our marriage? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? I mean, are you satisfied with our relationship? Do you feel like we have a good marriage? Carmen studied my face, perhaps wondering if I was becoming suspicious about something. Of course I'm happy, Reggie. We've been together for 32 years. We have 3 wonderful children and another on the way. We have a nice home, financial security, a good life together. A good life together. Built on her lies and my ignorance. I just want to make sure you're not missing anything, I continued. That you're getting everything you need from our relationship. I'm getting everything I need, she said, though her tone suggested she was being careful about how she answered. Good. Because I'd hate to think you were looking for something elsewhere. Carmen's face went pale. What do you mean by that? I mean I'd hate to think you were unsatisfied with our marriage and seeking fulfillment outside our relationship. Reggie, why are you asking these questions? Is something bothering you? Something was bothering me. My wife was pregnant with another man's baby, and I just learned that at least one of my other children wasn't mine either. Just making sure we're on the same page about our marriage and our future, I said. We are, Carmen said quickly. We're completely on the same page. But we weren't on the same page. We weren't even reading the same book. Carmen was living in a fantasy where she could have affairs, bear other men's children, and maintain a comfortable marriage with a husband who supported her lies. I was living in reality, where DNA tests and medical records revealed the truth about decades of deception. The next morning, I made a decision about how to handle what I'd learned. I called my lawyer, Richard Thompson, and made an appointment to discuss divorce proceedings and paternity issues. This is a complex situation, I told him during our consultation. My wife is pregnant with another man's baby, and I have DNA evidence that at least one of my other children isn't mine either. Richard reviewed the DNA test results and medical records I'd brought. This is definitely grounds for divorce, he said. The question is how you want to proceed. Do you want to confront your wife first, or do you want to file papers and let her find out that way? I want to confront her. But I want to be prepared for her to lie, deny everything, and try to manipulate the situation. Given the level of deception you've described, that's probably wise. Richard helped me prepare a strategy for confronting Carmen with the evidence while protecting my legal and financial interests. He also recommended that I gather more evidence of her current affair before initiating divorce proceedings. The more documentation you have of her infidelity, the stronger your position will be in divorce court, he explained. Over the next week, I quietly gathered evidence of Carmen's ongoing affair. I hired a private investigator to follow her during her mysterious appointments and document who she was meeting. The results were devastating but not surprising. Carmen was having an affair with Dr. Marcus Webb, a physician at the medical clinic where she'd returned to work part-time 2 years earlier. They'd been meeting regularly at his apartment, at hotels, and at various locations around the city. The private investigator had photographs of them together, documentation of their meetings, and evidence that their relationship had been ongoing for at least 2 years. Dr. Webb was 45 years old, divorced, and apparently the father of Carmen's unborn baby. But the investigation also revealed something even more disturbing. Carmen had been having affairs with multiple men over the years, not just one long-term relationship. The private investigator found evidence of at least 3 different affairs Carmen had conducted during our marriage, including relationships with men from her volunteer work, her college classes, and her previous job. Carmen wasn't just cheating. She was a serial adulterer who'd been maintaining multiple relationships for decades while building what appeared to be a stable marriage with me. I now had enough evidence to confront Carmen with confidence that I knew the full truth about her betrayals. On a Tuesday evening in March, after Carmen had returned from another appointment with Dr. Webb, I asked her to sit down in our living room for a serious conversation. Carmen, we need to talk about your pregnancy. What about it? I need you to tell me the truth about who the father is. Carmen's face went completely white. What are you talking about? You're the father. No, I'm not. And we both know it. Reggie, I don't understand why you're saying this. I pulled out the medical records from Dr. Peterson's office. I had a vasectomy in 1995, Carmen. 30 years ago. I've been sterile our entire marriage. The silence that followed was deafening. Carmen stared at the medical records like they were written in a foreign language. That's impossible, she whispered. It's not impossible. It's documented medical fact. I cannot father children, which means the baby you're carrying belongs to someone else. Carmen started crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of panic and anger. How could you get a vasectomy without telling me? How could you cheat on me for 30 years without telling me? I never cheated on you. I pulled out the DNA test results. Kevin isn't my biological son, Carmen. These DNA tests prove it. Carmen looked at the test results with horror. You tested Kevin without telling him? I tested Kevin because I needed to know the truth about our family. And the truth is that you've been having affairs and passing off other men's children as mine. That's not true. I pulled out the private investigator's photographs. Dr. Marcus Webb, Carmen, your lover for the past 2 years. The father of the baby you're carrying. Carmen stared at the photographs of herself and Dr. Webb together, and I watched her realize that her decades of deception had finally been exposed. How long have you known? She asked quietly. I've suspected since you announced your pregnancy. I've known for certain since I got the DNA test results last week. What are you going to do? I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth about what kind of person you are. And I'm going to stop supporting the lies you've built our marriage on. Carmen looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not remorse, but calculation. Reggie, please. Think about what you're doing. Think about our family, our children, our life together. Our family. Carmen, Kevin isn't my son. Our unborn baby isn't my child. Our life together has been built on your lies. But Diana is yours. Marcus is yours. Don't you care about them? I care about them more than you do, apparently. You've been lying to them about their family for their entire lives. What would telling them accomplish? It would just hurt everyone. Telling them the truth would give them the right to know who they really are and who their real fathers are. Carmen started crying harder. Please don't destroy our family over this. I'm not destroying our family, Carmen. You destroyed our family 30 years ago when you started cheating on me. I'm just finally acknowledging what you did. Can't we work through this? Can't we go to counseling and try to save our marriage? Save our marriage? Carmen, there's nothing to save. Our marriage has been a lie for 3 decades. But I love you, Reggie. I've always loved you. No, you haven't. You've used me. You've used me to provide financial support while you had affairs with other men. You've used me to give legitimacy to children that aren't mine. You've used me to maintain respectability while living a double life. Carmen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that revealed exactly who she really was. What do you want me to do, Reggie? Do you want me to give up Dr. Webb and promise never to see him again? Give up Dr. Webb. Not apologize for 30 years of affairs, not express remorse for the deception, not acknowledge the damage she'd done to our family. Just give up her current lover as if that would solve everything. It's too late for that, Carmen. It's been too late for 30 years. So you're just going to throw away our entire life together? I'm not throwing anything away. You threw away our life together when you decided to cheat on me repeatedly and lie about the paternity of our children. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? You're supposed to go live with Dr. Webb and raise his baby. You're supposed to face the consequences of the choices you've made. And what about Marcus and Diana? What do I tell them? You tell them the truth. You tell them that you've been cheating on their father for most of their lives, that Kevin isn't their full brother, and that their new sibling belongs to another man. That will destroy them. You should have thought about that before you started destroying our family with your affairs. Carmen looked at me with pure hatred. You're going to regret this, Reggie. You're going to regret destroying everything we built together. We didn't build anything together, Carmen. You built a lie, and I unknowingly supported it. But I'm done supporting your deceptions. Fine. If that's how you want it. That's how it has to be. Carmen stood up and walked toward the door. I'll be staying with my sister until I can figure out what to do next. Take your time. The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow. She turned back to look at me one final time. You know what the saddest part of all this is, Reggie? What? You were a good husband and father. You deserved better than this. Yes, I did. Carmen left that night, and I never saw her again except in court. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. With DNA evidence proving infidelity and paternity fraud, Carmen had no legal standing to contest the dissolution of our marriage or claim significant assets. She moved in with Dr. Webb and gave birth to their son 4 months later. They named him Marcus, which felt like a final insult to the son I'd raised who actually was mine. The hardest part of the entire situation was telling Marcus, Diana, and Kevin the truth about our family. Marcus took the news about Kevin's paternity relatively well. I always wondered why Kevin looked so different from us, he said. Now it makes sense. Diana was devastated. Does this mean our whole family was a lie? It means your mother lied to us for 30 years, I said. But it doesn't change the fact that I love you and Marcus completely, and it doesn't change the fact that we're still family. Kevin was the most difficult conversation. So I'm not really your son? You're my son in every way that matters, I told him. I raised you, I love you, and I'll always be your father regardless of biology. But who is my real father? I don't know. That's something you'll have to ask your mother about. Kevin chose not to pursue a relationship with his biological father, whoever that was. You're the only father I've ever known, he said. Biology doesn't change that. A year after the divorce, I was still adjusting to life as a single man at 59 years old. The house felt empty without Carmen's presence, but it also felt honest for the first time in decades. I'd started dating a wonderful woman named Sarah, a widow who understood betrayal and the difficulty of rebuilding trust after a long marriage ended badly. How do you know when someone is telling you the truth? She asked during one of our early conversations. You don't, I admitted. But you can choose to trust until you have reason not to. And if they betray that trust, then you deal with the consequences honestly instead of living in denial. Sarah nodded. My husband didn't cheat, but he did hide a gambling addiction that nearly destroyed us financially. Different kind of betrayal, but it still makes you question everything you thought you knew about your partner. The difference is you found out in time to address the problem. I found out 30 years too late to save my marriage. But not too late to save yourself. She was right about that. Carmen's pregnancy announcement had been the key that unlocked 30 years of lies and gave me the freedom to live honestly for the first time since I was 28 years old. People ask me why I never suspected Carmen was cheating for so long. How could a man live with a woman for 32 years and not know she was having multiple affairs? The answer is that Carmen was extremely good at compartmentalizing her life. She was genuinely devoted to being a good mother and maintaining a comfortable home. She managed our finances responsibly, participated in our social life appropriately, and provided emotional support when I needed it. What she was also doing was maintaining parallel relationships with other men that provided the excitement and passion she wasn't getting from our marriage. Carmen wasn't a neglectful wife who was obviously having affairs. She was a calculating woman who figured out how to have everything: a stable marriage, financial security, social respectability, and multiple romantic relationships, without any of it interfering with the others. Until she got pregnant at 55 and forgot that her husband had been sterile for 30 years. That one mistake unraveled 3 decades of careful deception and exposed the truth about who Carmen really was, a woman who was willing to lie about the most fundamental aspects of family and marriage to get what she wanted. But Carmen's mistake gave me something I'd never had during our marriage: the truth about my own life. I now knew why our marriage had often felt hollow despite appearing successful. I now knew why Carmen had seemed emotionally distant even when she was physically present. I now knew why I'd sometimes felt like an outsider in my own family. It wasn't because I was a bad husband or father. It was because I was living in a carefully constructed fiction while Carmen lived in reality with other men. The vasectomy I'd gotten 30 years ago to prevent unwanted pregnancies ended up being the key to discovering 30 years of unwanted betrayals. And for that, I was grateful. My name is Reginald Harris, but everyone calls me Reggie. I'm 59 years old, and 2 years ago my 55-year-old wife announced she was pregnant. There was just one problem. I'd had a vasectomy 30 years earlier and never told her about it. That pregnancy announcement led to the discovery that my wife had been having affairs for most of our 32-year marriage, that at least one of my 3 children wasn't biologically mine, and that the woman I'd trusted with my entire adult life was capable of decades of systematic deception. Carmen thought she could have everything: a stable marriage, financial security, and multiple affairs, without any consequences. She managed her double life perfectly for 3 decades. But she made one critical error. She got pregnant while married to a man who couldn't father children. That mistake cost her everything: her marriage, her respectability, her comfortable lifestyle, and her children's trust and respect. It gave me something I'd never had: the truth about my own life and the freedom to build relationships based on honesty instead of lies. Sometimes the biggest betrayals lead to the greatest liberations. Sometimes discovering that your entire life was a lie is the first step toward living authentically. And sometimes a secret vasectomy turns out to be the best decision you ever made, even if it takes 30 years to understand why. Look at your screen right now. You'll see 2 more stories waiting for you. Both from men like me who discovered the truth too late, but not too late to fight back. Click on whichever one speaks to you. And hit that notification bell if you want to join our brotherhood of men who refuse to be played for fools. Until next time, remember, the truth always comes out, and when it does, be ready.